because I have a question for you. Tonight, I want to know, is there anything that you feel like you could never forgive? Is there anything you can imagine that would be so horrific that you feel like you could never get past it? Now, I know sometimes we are flippant with our language and we'll say, oh, if a person ever did that to me, I would never forgive them. But maybe that's true, maybe it's not. So, in our first hour, we're going to talk about forgiveness. And we'll be asking and answering questions like, what is your definition of forgiveness? And is there something you believe is impossible to forgive? Have you ever been forgiven for something that you thought was unforgivable? So I'm going to ask you to share your thoughts by either calling or texting. You can call 412-213-8995, or you can text 412-218-3888. And then later, we'll talk about former NFL player Michael Irvin, who appears to perhaps be cheating on his wife. He's been seen out, caught on video with another woman, and we'll look at his situation and the unusual circumstances involved in it. And we'll ask you to weigh in on whether or not you think he's cheating in that situation, and if what he's doing, whether it's cheating or not, is worthy of forgiveness. So tonight we're going to attempt to answer those and many other questions. Of course, we want to answer your questions as well. So I'm going to start off with just the question of why is forgiveness so difficult? And to help me answer that question and many more is tonight's guest, Wanda Pearson. Wanda Pearson is the founder of WD Pearson Associates LLC. She blends 36 plus years in sales with a passion for empowering others. She's an author, speaker, coach, and podcast host of Ready, Set, Collaborate. She inspires entrepreneurs to achieve success, to set highlighted faith and purpose in every endeavor. Excuse me for that one. I kind of botched that up. But Wanda is here tonight to share with us her views on forgiveness. As I mentioned, she is an author. We'll talk a little bit about her book and get into not only how she looks at forgiveness, but her understanding of how the Word of God addresses forgiveness as well. So let me just start out by saying thank you, Wanda, for joining me tonight. So glad to have you here.
Oh, I am so happy to be here. Thank you so much. I'm excited about this topic.
Good, good. Yeah, we'll have
Yes,
the time flies, but we will have great conversation. Hopefully, we'll have some questions and comments that we can focus on as well. But let's begin by defining forgiveness. I want our listeners to talk about how they understand forgiveness, but how do you define it in the book?
I define forgiveness as a conscious decision to release resentment, which I had a lot of resentment was as I was growing up being abused. Bitterness, I was bitter, and the desire of revenge towards someone who has hurt you by trusting God with justice. So that is something that actually I believe it took me a long time even to write this book, forgiveness. That is an everyday concept, but I'd say defining forgiveness is the belief of being misunderstood. Words in our
Mm,
language, right? Many people think it's just about forgetting, about excusing, or pretending the pain never happened. That's what I did. I buried forgiveness, unforgiveness so deep down inside that God was, when He was ready for me to release it, to forgive, that's when I wrote this book. So forgiveness is none of those things. Forgiveness is choosing to release the burden of bitterness so you can walk in freedom that God has always intended for your life. So it's about
wow,
the freedom and the healing that you need to do to really not let that bitterness, resentment fester in your heart. And it's
that's
releasing and
good.
letting go and letting
Yeah.
God take care of it.
That's good. And you mentioned that you had to forgive. I'm a firm believer that when God gives us a message, it's always for us first. The first book that I wrote is called Tame Your Tongue and Transform Your Relationship. And I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that I needed to tame my tongue. I could tear you up with my tongue and took great pleasure in doing it at one point in my
Yes.
life. And so I needed to rein mine back in. And so it's interesting that same thing with you. There were some things you needed to forgive. And the
Mhm.
central question, you kind of alluded to it, but we really have to determine is forgiveness about what the other person deserves or about the freedom that you deserve. And you talked about that. And when we look at, the title of your book, which we will talk about, Forgiveness, Walking in Freedom through God's Grace, that's exactly what it is. Forgiveness is about freeing you. And so there are
Mhm.
four principles of forgiveness that I want to discuss. And I'll throw them out there and you feel free to chime in as you see fit. But one of the principles is that forgiveness is emotional. it's not logical. And I
Mhm.
think that is so important because just as you were saying, we think about it and sometimes we think the person doesn't deserve to be forgiven or that's not something I can get past. But that's us thinking about what they deserve and it's not our place to do that. Most of us think forgiveness is a decision that we make with our minds, but if that
Mhm.
were true, we would simply decide to forgive and move on. Instead, forgiveness is often a battle between our head and our heart because on one level, we believe that there should be some punishment, some retribution for the wrong that was done to us. And then on the other level, we're still hurting. And as you said, it's not about forgetting. You can forgive and never forget. So like your
Mhm.
logical mind will say things like, it's over. But your emotions will say, but I'm still hurting. So is it really over? And that's why people can genuinely want to forgive and still feel angry months or even years after it's happened because our brains are designed to protect us. So when someone hurts us, especially someone that we love, our brain stores the emotional pain almost like a warning system. And it's why you can still tense up when you hear their name or you're around a certain trigger, maybe a certain location, a song, a
Yeah.
smell, any of those kinds of things can bring back not only the memory, but the hurt so many years later. So yeah, your
Mhm.
emotions remember what your mind wants to forget. And I just know when I think about that and the fact that you had some things to overcome and forgive, what was that battle like for you, trying to distinguish between the heart and the head and the emotions versus the logic? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, it was my first book was God's Grace Through the Fire from Struggle to Triumph. It was a struggle to deal, especially when you said when things come up like on TV, like Ike and Tina Turner, when I see men beating on women, and even though I may have forgiven, but I didn't forget it. So it was really hard dealing with that, and then being a child, being abused as a child, and hating the person who was doing it to me. And I couldn't understand why is God letting this person get away with this. But you know what? God actually protected me during those age that I have. And thank God for my father, my stepmother, that actually helped me to be able to grow to be who I am today.
Mhm.
Um, it's about healing and making that decision to forgive, but it's not easy. It's not
Yeah,
easy because every day we have to we have to ask God for forgiveness. Because you
absolutely.
see the same people doing the same thing over and over, hurting you all the time, keep hurting you. And it was just really about learning how to give it to God, helping us to be able to release it. So that's when our hearts often need time to heal. And it
Yeah.
may take years, it may take days, it may take, I don't know, hours, I don't know what it is, but it's still continue healing and learning how to be able to forgive. Because in my book, I talk about that and I talk about, and we do the four principles. But yeah, you're right. Forgiveness is emotional, not logical. It is emotional. Because when you think about things that happen to you, think about things when you see things that other people are doing to other women. Like I've been through that. I've been through that and I don't want them to go through that. And that's when I became a social worker because
Mhm.
I didn't want, and I do mentor in that middle school too, I don't want people to get stuck there because I tell you, with my mother, her self-esteem and confidence was blown.
Yeah.
She did not have any kind of self-esteem and confidence. And that's really what I wanted to do while I became a social worker to help people to say, don't let anybody steal your joy. To tell my mother all that all the time. Don't let anybody steal your joy
And
because
that's a lot
sometimes
of
we
what
can,
happens, right? When you get
yeah.
into those situations, it doesn't, many times it might be a physical situation
Mhm.
that you have to forgive, but there's also the emotional baggage that goes along with it.
Yeah.
And you mentioned healing. And so, is it possible to forgive before you heal?
Yeah, you can forgive before you heal because you think you forgave, but then something else happens because then you got to ask for healing all over again, right? And that's really where the hurt comes in because God heals the places that still hurt. He's still healing you, but you got to be able to trust him and have faith in him to know that that's what he's doing. But yeah, well, we're humans. I mean, this is something that we deal with all the time. So we make the decision to forgive, and that's when God heals the places that still hurt. But you kind of continue to pray to ask God, help me, Lord. I need your help because a lot of times people continue to do the things that say they would never do, and they still do it. And it's just about letting go and letting God. So, and that's where the freedom comes into play. The freedom
Yeah.
that you deserve. You
And like
deserve
you
to be.
like you said, you have to pray every day. Forgiveness is not a one and done. It's a
Hmm.
journey. It's a process. And so the second
Yeah.
principle that you talk about is how hurt changes how we see people, because pain changes your perception. And so when someone hurts us, we often
Hmm.
stop seeing who they are and start seeing what they did. That was powerful when I read that. It's like, wow, that is so true.
Yes.
The person kind of disappears and you see them and all you think about is what they did to you. And
Yeah.
that one mistake now becomes their identity. And so it's hard to think about them without thinking about the betrayal or the lie or the pain that they cause. And so many times, instead of saying, she betrayed me, we actually conclude she can't be trusted. And those two
Hmm.
are not necessarily interchangeable. Just because someone betrayed you, or at least in your mind, they betrayed you in that one situation, doesn't mean that they can't be trusted in the future. And so, that kicks us into that self-protection. And I know you shared something about that as well. So how do you do that? How is it that we go into protecting ourselves? What are some of the things that we do to make sure that this person who we now feel cannot be trusted does not hurt us again? And I'll take it even further.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's not just that person, but it's other people who remind us of that person. Sometimes you'll find that, let's say a woman is hurt in a relationship, and so now she swears off relationships. She doesn't want anything to do with any men because of that
Hmm.
one individual who did something. So what are your views on like self-protection?
Well, yeah, that's it. Like infidelity can be forgiven, but forgiveness and reconciliation are not always the same. So we
Mm,
can reconcile, right? But we want, and just like you were talking about as far as forgiving that person, because I mean, they say that once they do it one time, they do it another time, but you just never know. So reconciliation requires trust, accountability, and change, right? So forgiveness frees our heart from bitterness, and that's time when we get bitterness that are not that a relationship continues. So pain is very often caused for us to generalize one person's actions to everyone else, everything else. I mean, everyone else. But healing teaches us the discernment instead of cynicism. So it's about being able to letting go and letting God take to release what we're holding on to. And that's what healing it comes to. So one person's betrayal should never become the prison for everyone else who enters your life. Because a lot of times we may have forgiven the person who hurt us, and then you get into another relationship. But now you're thinking about that old relationship that actually, oh, that person did that to me, and I don't want that to happen. So it's really like a prison within yourself, but that's where you have to let it go and forgive. But like I said, you won't forget, but
yeah.
forgiving is something that it's a big word, and it's a constant
And
reminder.
and sometimes not forgetting really is a protective thing, because if you
Yes.
don't forget, it helps keep you from getting into that same situation again, whether it's with that
Mhm.
person or someone else. So you can remember, you can,
Mhm.
choose not to forget, but just release the pain and everything that goes along with it, because pain will often rewrite the story, and we don't want pain to write the story. We want
Right.
to write the story. And so we want to forget about the pain, even though we may not forget about the situation that happened. But again, the brain is trying to protect you. So
Yes.
it sometimes overcompensates, and it will make you feel like stay away from anything that looks, smells, sounds, whatever, like that
Yeah.
particular situation to keep yourself protected. So we really have to use our judgment to know how far we can go with that protection. And we've got some people who have some comments for us. So thank you so much to all these folks who have chosen to send something our way. So someone is saying, "Oh, thank you. What a blessing to have both of us on the air. If we don't forgive, our own cells are damaged." That is so true. The body
Mhm.
holds on to trauma. Your
Yes.
cells hold on to different things that you experience. And as a result of that, you can become physically ill. One of the things, many of you know that in addition to being certified in this space with respect to relationships, one of my other certifications has to do with the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we
Mhm.
study oppression, like my study has mostly been on racial oppression, but it can even be brought down to an individual person level, being oppressed in a relationship or at work or a number of other situations. But when someone is exposed to repeated oppression, discrimination, those kinds of things, your cell holds on to it. And that's sort of the basis for PTSD. People get post-traumatic stress syndrome or disorder because the cells have held on to it. And so
Mhm.
it impacts our health, not only your mental health, but your physical health as well. And many times, as I'm getting deeper and deeper into exploring menopause in women, because that's a new passion of mine, and I'm
Mm.
certified in that area as well. And when we start
Yeah.
looking at that, one of the reasons that doctors and researchers tell us that women of color experience menopause differently. We usually go into menopause a little bit earlier. Our
Yeah.
symptoms are more intense, and it lasts longer than others. And when I say menopause, I'm speaking of the journey. We know that true menopause is just one day. We're talking about
Mhm.
everything from perimenopause straight through postmenopause, but we experience it differently. And they attribute that to something that they call weathering. But the whole idea behind it is our cells have held on to so much trauma that our experience of that natural biological function is different than women who have not experienced it to the same level. So we got
Mhm.
some good comments. Somebody saying, amen. Somebody commented on, I need
Yeah.
to tame my tongue too. Yeah, girl, that's a real thing. And I can help you with that one. Like I said, I got the book for you. People saying freedom. Some folks are saying hello. Yes, Jesus said, forgive them, Father, but people don't know what they're doing. Absolutely. All of that is so true.
Mhm. Mhm.
The principle, those of us who are followers of Christ, we may look to scripture to give us the foundation about how we should forgive, when we should forgive, why we should forgive. But even if you're not a believer and a follower, just human kindness and generosity is another reason for being forgiving, because at some point, you are
Yeah.
going to do something that you will need to be forgiven of, and you want to give that same courtesy and respect to other people.
Yeah.
So,
I want to say this real quick. So, when we hold on to that and unforgiveness in our heart, that person that you're mad at, they're going on about their business. They're not even
yes,
thinking about you. And then we've got so much heartache and bitterness inside of us that we have not released it. And the people don't even know. And then you say, well, you didn't say you're sorry to about. Well, what did I do? They don't even know what they did. So that
absolutely.
that is something that we deal with every day. I mean, listen,
That's true. And that's where you talked about it being like a prison. That's where it comes in. You're locked up
yes,
worrying about
yes,
this situation that the person has long forgotten and since moved on. So that's true. There's a cost. I mean, there's a cost that goes along with
yes,
unforgiveness, because when hurt changes how we see everyone, we stop trusting, we stop loving, we stop
yeah,
taking risks, and eventually we become emotionally unavailable. We are not able to express ourselves, share our feelings, show affection and attention, and all of those good warm feelings to other people, not because we're cold, but because we're protecting old wounds. And many times when the
yeah,
wound happens early in life, you can become emotionally unavailable and not even realize it, or not even remember what the situation was that led you to closing up. Many times it's a trauma that happened early in life. Sometimes it's abuse or abandonment or neglect, but something happened early in life that causes people to shut down emotionally, and they become emotionally unavailable. So that's the cost. When you don't forgive, when you can't get past something, it hurts you much more than it hurts the other person. We think that, if we don't forgive you, we give you the cold shoulder, we don't talk to you, we don't reach out
yeah.
anymore. You're hurting
Yeah.
yourself. That other person could care less. They have moved on with their life.
They
So
don't care. They don't care. And that's the prison that we put it within ourselves. And also not only that, Dr. Linda, is the health. We ruin our health,
yes,
because in that stress and the aggravation, all of those things that actually is ruining our health and our mental, mentality, because that's that way you're not believing in anybody else, that somebody may treat you good, but then you remember what happened in the past. So I always say the past don't equal the future. That
mm,
past is what you bring up as far as the unforgiveness, but the future is forgiving. And it took me a long time. Like I said, it took me a long time to write this book here, to be able to put it down. I mean, 2 years to write it, because I kept putting it down, and I said, well, why should I write this book? But God kept telling me, you got to get this out here, Wanda. You got to get this out here. So it's something that is needed for us in everyday life, just to keep that peace. It's about
yeah.
peace. and freedom.
Was it freeing for you? Like to get it out and put into the book, that it did it
Yeah,
release even further? Yeah.
yes, it was. I tell you, when we actually moved here to Georgia from New Jersey, we went to a total forgiveness class. Can you imagine total forgiveness? I was like,
Mm,
total forgiveness. And the pastor said you have to think about somebody that you need to forgive, and just let it go. You know, beat in your mind, beat him upside the head. And I was being, because it was my stepfather. I was beating him
mm.
upside the head, and I said, "Wow." Once I said, "Oh God, I didn't know I had." It was like 20 years earlier. I had no idea I held on to that for so long. And
Wow.
once I released that, it's when my blessings flow. So think about that. Once you release it, that freedom that you're going to have, the peace of mind, your forgiveness comes, and God will start freeing a lot of things in your life that you held on to for years.
Absolutely. Got a few more comments in. Yeah, let me remind you all, grab Wanda's book. There is on YouTube, I know we've got the link up, and we may be able to get it up for those of you who are checking other places. But if you're listening to us on YouTube, definitely make sure you click the link to order the book directly from her so that you can get an autographed copy. You can get it from Amazon, but it won't be autographed. We want you to get it directly from her. And so we do have someone who's saying, if it walks like a duck, absolutely. Many times we get trapped into overlooking, we turn a blind eye, as they say, to certain things. And so we've got to make sure that we don't do that. Yeah,
Yes.
someone commented on my comments about menopause. Menopause is typically
Oh
toxic
yeah.
overload. Yes, it is. And send them an eviction notice from your mind.
That's
Absolutely.
a good one. I
Got
like
some,
that.
yeah, some folks telling us hello from Pittsburgh. Thank you so much. We're so glad that all of you are tuning in. I am talking to Wanda Pearson on the subject of forgiveness. And if you want to get in on this conversation, please give us a call at 412-213-8995, or you can text us at 412-218 3888. Or as you can see, I've been reading comments that have come in the YouTube chat. So that's another place that you can reach out. If you don't want to call or text, put it in the chat, and our excellent producer will make sure that I see those comments that you place in. So I'm going to move on to number 3. Number 3 is betrayal often attacks our identity. And this is really critical. We talked about the confidence and the self-esteem. People think that betrayal only breaks trust, but actually it breaks your identity. When someone betrays you, you are so busy doing all of the things that we talked about, locking yourself up, thinking about ways to get back at them, or ruminating on the hurt that you feel and how could they do this, and you're so busy wrapping yourself up in that cocoon to protect yourself that your identity is breaking. You are not the same person you used to be, all because of them. So like that one listener said, give them an eviction notice from your mind. After betrayal, people don't just ask what happened. They have a tendency to say, what's wrong with me? Why did that happen to me? What did I do or not do? And so your identity gets wounded. And when we talk about an identity wound, that's a deep emotional injury that occurs when your authentic self feels like it's been rejected or suppressed, or maybe never properly reflected back to you. And so there are things that happen throughout the day, every day, that have the potential of wounding our identity. And it's up to us to be grounded, to know who we are and whose we are, so that we can fight off all of those things. One of the things that I do in the morning is I start my day spending time with God, praying, being in his word, sometimes listening to music, to remind myself of who he is and who he says I am, so that when I come into contact with some of these potentially wounding experiences, they won't have that effect on me. And I know many times when we think in terms of relationships and we think about wounds or betrayal or forgiveness, our mind typically goes to cheating. And so a cheating spouse doesn't just create heartbreak. They are wounding your identity. And the person who is betrayed will often ask, like I said, was I enough? Was I attractive enough? Sexy enough? Strong enough? Manly enough? Was I lovable? Where did I fail? Why wasn't I chosen? In fact, last week when we talked, and again, if you didn't hear Oscar, please go back and listen to last week's show. But last week when we talked, one of the things that Oscar said really got him started down that path of always trying to be chosen. And it eventually morphed into a situation of him wanting to be chosen so badly that he would allow himself to be chosen by women outside of his marriage just to kind of feed his ego. Now, of course, he wasn't aware at the time that that's what was going on. But when our identity gets wounded, we often do spend time looking for other people to kind of validate who we are. And even if it's not a cheating situation, it could be something on the job where you were overlooked for a promotion that you felt you deserved. It could be not being chosen to be on a team or something. Those kind of things wound us. We internalize those wounds, and then we spend lots of time looking for other things to fill a void that they cannot fill. So hold your thoughts. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll talk just a little bit more about this betrayal and how it impacts us, wounds our identity. And then we'll move on to talking about that fourth principle. So we got a lot more for you before we even get to talking about Michael Irvin. So this is Relationship Conversations with Dr. Linda Bing on Pittsburgh's DSCN. Let's take a break and we'll be right back.
It's an old school party. Yes, each Saturday we throw it back with some of the best old school music, funk, R&B, old school, rap, hip hop, and all the jams that make you move and dance. Yes, check it out. Each Saturday right here on Pittsburgh's DSEN. All the old school jams, 6 to 11 p.m.
Pittsburgh, have you seen our Sunday radio schedule? Ooh, it is lit. Start the day off with our Sunday gospel music from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. It will inspire you and have you praising the Lord. Then from 3 to 8 p.m., we bring you Sunday jazz melody for all the jazz lovers. Then cap off the night with the Quiet Storm from 8 to 11 p.m. to hear the best smooth, romantic, and soulful R&B sounds of yesterday and today. All that each Sunday on Pittsburgh's DSEN, the place for soul.
Pittsburgh, it's an old school party. Yes.
Looking for a cost-effective way to help increase your company's bottom line? Look no further than Soul Pit Media. With our award-winning print, internet, podcast, and Soul Pit television options, we can help your business get to that next level. For more information, contact Craig Dawson at 412-407-7685. That's 412-407-7685. And let Soul Pit Media take you to that next level.
Business owners thinking about back-to-school promotions and replacing summer flavors with pumpkin? What about your taxes? Reduce your stress and tax liabilities by planning for tax time now with Cameron Professional Services Group. CPSG takes your goals, values, and visions to create a custom tax plan catered specifically to your business. We work closely with you to ensure that as your business grows and goals shift, so will your custom plan. Located in the Hill District in Pittsburgh, PA, CPSG is a CPA and consultant firm, providing services in accounting, auditing, tax planning and preparation, community development, and operational management. Call Cameron Professional Services Group today at 412-251-0607.
Have you had the Beat by Niche experience? Beat by Niche is one of the top makeup artists in the city of Pittsburgh. She's touched the face of Cardi B, love and hip-hop personalities, and various Steeler wives. If you have not sat in her chair, what are you waiting for? Visit beatbyniche.com to schedule your special makeover for all occasions, weddings, graduations, proms, photo ops, and more. Visit beatbyniche.com and experience the touch of excellence.
All right. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that little bit of a break. Welcome back to Relationship Conversations with Dr. Linda Bing on Pittsburgh's DSCN. I am speaking with my guest, Wanda Pearson. She's the author of the book Forgiveness, Walking in Freedom Through God's Grace. Before we took the break, we did discuss 3 of 4 principles of forgiveness. Wanda is expert in these principles. The first one we talked about was forgiveness is emotional, not logical. We talked about hurt changes how we see people. And we're in the middle of talking about betrayal and how betrayal often attacks our identity. So we were saying, Wanda, how we internalize the hurt and our identity gets wounded. And it doesn't only happen in marriage. We often think about forgiveness and we think about adult things, or we think about someone who abused us or cheated on us, but it can happen among friend groups. It can be gossip or something where a friend betrays you, doesn't keep a secret, those kinds of things. It can be within business. Sometimes business partners, one person may steal from the business or, do something unethical in order to get a deal. Sometimes it happens inside of even a church environment where individuals may feel rejected somehow. Maybe they feel like there are cliques that they don't belong to, or certain ministries that they can't become a part of. But all of them create the same question. They all take us back to, am I valuable? What is wrong with me? So it makes me wonder, and I want to ask you this, does a person's ability to forgive change based on the situation? So if it's a matter of the friends who gossip versus the church member rejecting you, or the spouse who cheated on you, does your ability to forgive change based on the situation?
Yeah, it depends on your mindset. And God, I've been through all of those. So you say that, I'm like, yeah, I've been through that one, I've been through that one, I've been through that one. So, but it really is really about God. It's really hard to forgive when someone that you thought was your friend that hurt you. As far as gossip, but I have to say that our identity comes from God. It's not from somebody else's choices, right?
Yeah.
So the journey, that it depends on the depth of the wound. So the wound could be very hurtful. I mean, listen, I worked in corporate for 36 years, and I've been through all of that. Passed over for a job, and passed over with jealousy, passed over, or the people that talk about you. How did she get that job and I didn't get that job? So it really depends on the situation, but it also depends on your mindset and your strength to be able to get through it. But we have to question our worth. But with God's grace, I discovered that my value was never determined by another person's decision. So, but it took me a long time to learn that, right?
That's good. Yeah,
It
that's
really,
good.
it,
And you mentioned that our identity comes from God. So, what does scripture tell us about our identity?
the scripture reminds us that we are loved, we are chosen and created with purpose. And my confidence was rebuilt one step at a time as I trusted God to heal my heart. And I do have a scripture from, and I want to talk about that because actually I did. In Ephesians 2:10, God has made us what we are. In Christ Jesus, God made us to do good works, which God planned in advance for us to live our lives doing. Whatever He had planned for you. Now, my favorite verse, and you probably see in my book, is Jeremiah 29:11. God has
Yes.
plans for me not to harm me, but to help me, to protect me. And
Yeah.
really, when you think about that, when I left corporate, that was my favorite verse. And that's what I based my book on. And all of my books that I've written is Jeremiah 29:11, because I realize I don't care what people say about me. I know what God thinks about me, and I know, and that's the strength and that's the courage that you have to have in yourself to be able to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
So confidence was rebuilt one step at a time, and that's really what I had to learn how to do to build my confidence. Because during my times of growing up, and I think I grew up after I retired. Say, I don't care what people think about me here. I used to
Yeah.
worry about what people would say about me. But that's when I said, why am I worrying about them? And that's when that's when that prison that we hold ourselves in, right? The prison of letting people judge us. And it's about judging, how they judge us. And
Yes.
then that's
Yes.
really what gets you. But then you have to say, you got to let it go. And I'm gonna tell you, Dr. Linda, I woke up the beginning of the year and God put this verse on my heart, and I was like, oh my God. And that's when I started finishing this book. Um, let go, let God release.
Mm.
And I kept saying that, let go, let God release. Release the worry, release the harm that's being done to you. Let him heal you. And that verse is really what's been really pertinent to how I finished this book,
Yeah,
on
that's a
forgiveness.
book title right there. Let go, let God release. That's a book title right there. But Jeremiah 29:11 is one of my favorites as well. I think, like you were saying, that you grew up after retirement. I think there's something magical that happens in a woman when she turns 50.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm not retired, but I'm telling on myself, yes, I have seen 50. Okay. So
Yeah.
it's like something happens and you really get to a place in life, I believe, because it's happened to me and many of my friends, that you get to a
Mhm.
place where you no longer care. I am who I am. I'm not putting up with things anymore. I'm not
Yeah.
taking anybody's nonsense anymore. You
Yeah.
just have to accept me as I am. There's something about that number that just
Mhm.
seems to bring
Yeah.
out a different
Yeah.
aspect of us. And it's unfortunate that it doesn't happen sooner, but it happens at around age 50. And I
I
know
know.
much earlier than that, like maybe when I was in my mid to late 30s, there was a woman. She went to my church and she had gone through the minister in training program, though she was not a minister in the pulpit at our church. But she one day came up to me and she said that God had given her a scripture for me, and did I mind if she shared it? And it was
Mhm.
Jeremiah 29:11. And I have held on to that. It gets
Yeah.
me through the tough times, because
Yes.
when I am feeling down or defeated or in despair, I remember that God said, I know the plans I have for you,
That's
not
right.
plans to harm you, but to give you a hope and a bright future. And so no matter how low I'm feeling, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, there's a hope and a bright future. Just hold on, just hold on.
Yes.
And that's
Yes.
good. I think it's very applicable to this work of forgiveness, to
Oh,
understand that,
it
yeah,
is.
no, regardless of what has happened to you, just hold on, because he knows the plans that he has for you. So
Oh, yeah.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. In
That's
the
good.
back
All
of
right,
my
let's do.
book,
Oh, go
just
ahead.
real quick. Yeah, in the back of my book, I have that on the back of my book, Jeremiah 29:11. But this is one quote I really want to share with you, and we know we got to get on. So
That's
people may
okay.
reject you, but they cannot change the identity God has given you.
Wow.
So I'm gonna
That's a
repeat
good
that
one.
again. People may
Yeah,
reject you, but they cannot change the identity God has given you.
that's good. That is really good. And we don't take it to heart enough, but yes, we all have some work to do, but you are, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, it's not taking God by surprise. It's not an accident. It's like either he has placed you there or he's allowed you to be there for some particular reason. So
Hmm.
we just have to learn what that reason is. You're not going to get further until you learn the lesson. It's like going through school. You can't get to the fourth grade till you pass the third grade. So whatever you're going through in life, pass the test so you can get on to the next level. And so,
Yeah.
okay, I want to go into principle number 4. We
Okay.
confuse forgiveness with excusing behavior.
Mm.
That's something that we talked about even at the top of this conversation. Many times we think that if I forgive them, that I'm giving them a pass, that I'm saying that what they did to me was okay. And those are two totally different things. This might be the biggest misunderstanding about forgiveness, is that one thing
Hmm.
right here. We confuse forgiveness with excusing behavior because, like I said, many people refuse to forgive because they think that means that they're saying that what the person did was okay, but that's not what it means. You can acknowledge that a wrong was committed and refuse to tolerate it again. And at the same time, release the bitterness and the anger tied to the offense. We act as if they owe us something. And it's like, if I forgive you, then I'm letting go of that debt. Well, there was no debt in the first place. All you're doing is blocking your own peace. So I'm gonna give my uh, explanation of the difference, and I'll let you do the same. So to me,
Okay.
when you're excusing behavior, that's minimizing the offense. You're finding some acceptable reasons for it, like, oh, they were just stressed or they didn't mean to do it, and essentially it says that what they did was okay under the circumstances. That's sort of excusing behavior. But when you're forgiving, it's acknowledging the behavior was hurtful and wrong. Yes, what they did hurt and it was wrong, but it's a conscious decision to drop the emotional weight of resentment so that the past no longer dictates your present well-being. When you can't when you get to a place where you think about it a lot, you can't eat, you can't sleep, those kinds of things, you're stressed out, you're angry. Every time you think about it, it just pisses you off. Then you know that no matter what you say, you have not forgiven. So if we go back to that central question, is forgiveness about what they deserve or about the freedom you deserve? That's kind of where we are in this. We have to make that decision. So what are your thoughts about that when you think about excusing behavior versus forgiving?
Well, forgiveness is not forgetting, it's not pretending, and it's not minimizing or approving. So healthy boundaries and forgiveness can exist together,
Hmm.
but forgiveness has very little to do with someone else who deserves and everything to do with the freedom God desires for us. So we acknowledge the offense, right? We establish the healthy boundaries and still choose to release bitterness. And listen. I grew up with like excuses that my mother made that oh, he didn't do it, he didn't do it, but he keeps doing it. But why you keep making excuses?
Mm.
But it is, and I'm gonna tell you, a lot of this has to do with fear as well. Okay, it's fear of hurting someone's feeling, fear of being rejected, of that person not wanting to be with you, and you forgive what they do. So excuses, excusing their behavior is not healthy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So forgiveness is giving ourselves permission to heal while still trusting God with justice.
Yeah.
So you got to let God handle that. And it took me a long time to do that. We try to change people. We can't change. I found out a long time ago, we cannot change people of what they're thinking and what they're done. That's up to God to change. When I start letting go, letting God to release anything that I was trying to change, like changing my husband. Why are you doing it? Why are you saying it? Why? Listen, we've been married 45 years, and it's something that God is putting us together. But at the same time, um, being able to let God change that person, not us. Because when we try to change a person, we don't get the same results.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah. That's good. And so in a minute, we're going to transition to a video. There's a video that I had asked the producer Hezriel to find. It's a video clip of, I'm not going to give you too much. I want people to watch the video and then give us their input. So at any point, if you have a comment or a question right now, please call at 213-8995 or text to 412-218-3888. And of course, you can put your comment or question in the chat on YouTube. But as we think about forgiveness, forgiveness is not pretending that we were never hurt. Okay, it's not pretending that we weren't hurt. Many times we want to bury it because we think that will help us get over the pain, or we deny that it was actually taking place. We make excuses in our own mind for something that someone else did. But it isn't saying that what happened was acceptable. It's not abandoning boundaries. It's not forgetting the painful experience. Forgiveness is choosing. It's an active thing that you have to do. You have intentionally chosen freedom over bitterness. And maybe the hardest part of forgiveness is changing or recognizing that you can't change the other person. That's the hardest part. Just as you were saying,
Yeah.
we cannot control anybody else's behavior. I mean, let's be honest, most of the time we can't control our own behavior, much less the behavior of somebody else. And it's not your job. You would not want to be made to feel as if someone were trying to control or change you. Hezriel, I got some noise, some music coming in. Hezriel, can you kill that music? Must not be aware that we got that coming through. See if I can get, okay. Thank you. Yeah, so we're going to go to the video clip in just a moment, but we've got to make sure that we're not trying to change other people, because that's an impossibility. We've got to allow God to change us in some way. I remember hearing a pastor years ago. He and his wife wrote a very good book. Now I'm forgetting the name of it, but one of the things that came out of it was that marriage, a conflict in a marriage, is God's way of asking you to change. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to accept what they're doing or deny that whatever it is might be hurtful. Maybe someone is ignoring you, or maybe they're not showing affection. Maybe they're withholding money. Maybe all kinds of things going on that could make you feel betrayed. But we need to understand that whatever it is that's happening, yes, God will take care of that person and what they've done or what they're doing. He's looking to see what you're going to do. How are you going to respond? How are you going to react to this thing that has happened? So I want to show you a real life situation that's been getting a lot of attention on social media. And I'm not somebody that follows a lot of social media, but sometimes, depending on what networks you're a part of and who you're listening to, you can hear things. And so I was hearing about this. I looked and found a video, and I also asked the producer to find it. So if you can, Hezriel, can you switch us over to watching this video clip? It's very brief, and then I want to ask our listeners some questions based on what they see. Getting all of that in position. We can see it in the background. He'll get it live for you in just a moment. In the meantime, we have a question coming through. Isn't forgiveness also moving on and not dwelling on the past, even though parties choose not to discuss the past? Can people just exist and be happy and be cordial and just agree to disagree? What are your thoughts on that, Wanda?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that's a good one, but both parties have to be in cahoots with to be able to understand it. But yes.
Hopefully you all got a glimpse of that. In case you did not recognize him, that was former NFL player Michael Irvin. Irvin is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, wide receiver. He retired from the Dallas Cowboys in 2000, I believe it was, following a neck injury. And he has remained in the sport, though. He's a sportscaster, an analyst, and, a media figure. And so Michael Irvin has been married to his wife, Sandy, since 1990, and they have 4 children together. He's been serving as her primary caregiver after she was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease. He's been very open about her ongoing health struggles, ensuring that she receives round-the-clock care at home. I don't know the severity of her illness or how long she's had it, but I do know there are rumors about him dating. And to me, that video suggests maybe there's some truth to the rumors, because when I look at him and that woman, they seem to be more than friends. What you saw was a man and a woman in the video, and they seem to be just a little bit more than friends. That's the view that I get. And apparently it's the impression that many people are getting, which is why there's all of this noise going on about, is he cheating? And how could he do that if she's ill? And so on and so forth. And so I guess my questions for our listeners and for you, Wanda, would be, first of all, do you think he's wrong for dating while his wife has Alzheimer's? That's question number one. And my second question is that something that he should be forgiven for? Because remember, top of the show, we said, is there something that you could never forgive? So again, just the backdrop of it. She has early onset Alzheimer's. And in case, let me explain that term. It doesn't just mean that Alzheimer's had started early in her life. According to the Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's is not just a disease for old people. Younger onset Alzheimer's affects people younger than age 65. And many people who have early onset Alzheimer's are in their 40s and 50s. So a lot of people don't realize that you can get Alzheimer's early on, and it does have its own designation. It's called early onset Alzheimer's. About 1 in 9 people that are 65 and older in the United States has Alzheimer's disease, and about 110 of every 100,000 adults between the ages of 30 and 64 have young onset Alzheimer's. So just think about that. As young as 30, you can be diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. The average life expectancy for an individual diagnosed with late onset Alzheimer's is between 8 and 12 years. And it's believed that early onset has a more aggressive disease course and progresses faster, which would imply that maybe their lifespan is not even as long as the 8 to 12 years. So I don't know if that makes a difference for anyone understanding that. But on one hand, you can look at it and see that he has a wife who is ill. And the vows talk about, in sickness and in health, for better or for worse. Mm-hmm. So that needs to be taken into consideration. And then on the other hand, I can imagine those people who are saying, okay, but essentially he has no relationship with her because of the Alzheimer's. So I'm just curious, Wanda, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think he's wrong? If in fact he's dating, is he wrong for dating while his wife has Alzheimer's?
Yeah, that, because I know I wouldn't have, well, yeah, that's a hard forgiveness. That's a hard forgiveness. I mean, because reverse it here. What if it was the wife doing that to the husband? How would he feel? So yeah, that's definitely a praying situation with God.
Yeah. I want to know what people think. I want to know. So callers, what do you think? 412-213-8995 or 412-218-3888. Do you think he's wrong for dating while his wife has Alzheimer's? When I look at it, first of all, I mean, everybody knows I come from a background of I am a believer and follower of Christ. So dating while you're married, I don't care what the circumstances are, dating while you're married, in my book, would be wrong. There's some people that might look at it as a situational thing because of her illness. Some people might even say, well, maybe she's given permission, who knows? But, here are a couple of quotes from him. So according to Syracuse.com online publication, Irvin said, I just walked back. I was in the room with my wife, and my wife, though she's gotten real frail and doesn't necessarily do a lot of walking on her own, she can get up and move around, but she's not there mentally, Irvin said. He's quoted as saying this in people.com. We had been dating with this 8-9 years, going back and forth. I'm sorry, we have been dealing with this, he and his wife, dealing with the illness, 8 or 9 years, going back and forth. And what's difficult is it's quite hard to take care of someone 24 hours a day, the sports commentator said. Harold, that's his wife, Sandy Harold. Harold's changes in mood make it difficult for their family to keep the nurses they hire, Irvin shared. I have to keep a 24-hour nurse with her all the time, he said, noting how Harold takes her agitation out on the medical staff. She hits you. They take that nurse out, send in another nurse from the agency, and they put more charges on. So again, he's making a case, but I want to know what people think. Does that count? Because like we said, married is married. There were no conditions that I found pertaining to something like this in scripture or in the vows. And even if somebody says, well, we didn't say that in our vows. Nowadays people like to make up their own. So maybe they feel like, well, we didn't say that in our vows. You still have to go back to who created marriage. It's
Yeah.
an institution that was created by God, and it doesn't matter as much what you say to each other in front of that preacher or judge or whoever it happens to be. It's what does God say about marriage? So, like I said, I really want to know if people think that it's an act of betrayal. Maybe they think it's an act of survival. That's what he has to do in order to maintain. And like you said, that would be a hard forgive. Even if she's
Yeah.
not in her right mind most of the time, she may come in and out. That's not the issue. That's my opinion. So,
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. And I have to say, my father had, I don't know, Alzheimer or dementia. It's pretty much the same. But I mean, he got, after my first stepmom, my second stepmom, he got aggressive. And when he got aggressive, she had to put him in a nursing home. But, she was with him and, the whole time. And I'm just glad that he had 5 more years to live because
yeah.
she was with him. So, but that's a hard thing to do. I mean, I told my husband, once we fall out of love, I don't want to be just for convenience. That's not
Yeah.
what I'm going to do. So,
Yeah. Well, we're
um,
going to take a quick break and come back, but I'm not done with this conversation. We're going to take a break and come back. So, again, this is Relationship Conversations. I'm Dr. Linda Bing, and you're listening to Pittsburgh's DSEN. We'll be right back.
Looking for a cost-effective way to help increase your company's bottom line?
What's up, Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh's DSEN listeners? It's Monday. Let's start the week off right. We have that soulful music to help you. Yes, we have all the soulful sounds, and we hope that you're enjoying it. If so, send us a text at 412-218-3888 to let us know. We're wishing everyone a safe, productive, and fun week. And of course, keep our sounds on and let someone know about us. We are Pittsburgh's DSEN, the place for soul.
I'm not sure if we're back live or not. The music has stopped. So I am going to, just to make sure we don't have any dead air, I'm going to pick up where we left off. We're talking about this whole issue around Michael Irvin. And, even if we take it out of the context of Michael Irvin and just look in general, if someone is ill and they are unable to fulfill all of their spousal duties, even as simple as companionship, conversation, those kinds of things, is it okay for someone else to date? I don't know if his children have weighed in on it or not. I know that some of the children are. I know some of the children are older. They're grown. They might have an opinion on it. I wonder what they would think about their dad dating while their mom is ill with Alzheimer's, And again, people may feel like, well, it's survival. And it would probably be worse if he were to divorce her so that he could be free to date. That would be an awful situation to actually divorce someone who's in that state. But yeah, sometimes marriage involves sacrifice, just like so many other things in life. It involves sacrifice. And I could see if he had friends and there was nothing intimate or that, not just sexually intimate, but intimate in terms of the level of conversation, the level of touch, those kinds of things. Because everybody needs some companionship. I could understand if maybe there was somebody he talked to, or maybe every now and then they might grab a bite to eat on a friendship level. But yeah, if he's dating, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story. So Well, I mean, let's just be honest. Most of us, as you said earlier, if the shoe were on the other foot, we would not like it. So before you say uh, anything that would be in his defense, we need to understand, think about how you would feel if you were in his wife's position and that was happening to you. And that might help you to answer that question a little bit differently. So, at any rate, we are going to keep moving. Welcome back. Relationship Conversations with Dr. Linda Bing. Tonight, we're looking at the concept of forgiveness. We talked about some 4 principles of forgiveness. My guest, Wanda Pearson, answered some questions for us, gave her perspective, some of them from her book, others just, I'm sure, from lived experience, etc. But forgiveness is more complicated than you probably thought. It's not an easy thing. And many times you really don't know what you would do until you're in that particular situation. But one thing that I do know is that forgiveness is good for your health. We talked about the fact that the cells, and in fact, one of our listeners commented on how cells hold on to trauma. So let's talk a little bit about some of the physical symptoms that are associated with unforgiveness, things that happen in your body when you choose not to forgive. One of those things is that, any prolonged period or prolonged stress or a prolonged period of unforgiveness, one of the things it could lead to is high blood pressure, because prolonged resentment triggers stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, and they elevate heart rate and constrict the blood vessels, which increases the risk of hypertension. So when you are holding on to the anger, the bitterness, the resentment that goes along with not forgiving someone for what they did. Now, again, they've gone on with life. Life for them is good. You, on the other hand, are suffering, and you're doing damage to your heart as well. I got a message that something is going on with phone lines. So if you're trying to get through to us, don't give up. We're going to get that all straightened out so that you can get through and give us your opinion. Another thing that happens physically is your immune system is weakened. When you are constantly in emotional turmoil, and it's not just around forgiveness, anytime your body is overloaded with emotions and stress, you are more susceptible to picking up illnesses and diseases because your immune system decreases. And so it makes the body less efficient at fighting off infections and illnesses. Another one is headaches. And I'm sure there are people who have experienced stress headaches. If you're worried about something, many times when we're worried about finances or a job situation or someone who's ill and are they going to recover, or maybe you yourself had a diagnosis that is causing you stress, headaches tend to come due to that mental tension. And when you keep ruminating over things, so if you're ruminating over some past hurts, it could lead you to having that muscle tightness and constriction that can cause you some tension headaches. 2 more. One is sleep disturbances. The mental weight of unresolved anger due to unforgiveness interferes with the brain's ability to relax, leading to insomnia. You might have difficulty not only falling asleep, but staying asleep, and the quality of your sleep may not be good. It could be that restless sleep. So yes, your eyes were closed and you were asleep for 8 hours, but were you really at rest? And then the last one that I'll mention is digestive issues. Many people get IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, or ulcers because those negative emotions disrupt the gastrointestinal system. And so people get things like acid reflux, stomach ulcers, etc. Wanda, as you talk to people, because you're not just an author, but you also deal with, you also help coach people through situations like this. Have you come in contact with people who have experienced some of these physical symptoms?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of times they're holding on to so much unforgiveness in their heart,
Mm-hmm.
and the migraines, the health issues that they have, and releasing it is something that's hard for them to do.
Yeah.
So, and it's actually releasing the personal emotional baggage, and we call it emotional baggage because releasing that baggage to let go, let God, to be able to forgive. I mean, like I said, it's not easy. And we still talk about that unforgiveness is a prison. So holding on to that past, and yeah, and that's what the coaching that I do releasing that coaching, I'm sorry, releasing that fear, pain, um, frustration, all of that is part of unforgiveness.
Yeah.
So I try to help them to think about, what do you think that person is doing now? They've gone on about their life. They're not thinking about you. They got into, just like, I don't know what Michael Irvin, but I mean the same thing as far as letting letting go of something that, and pleasing their ways versus thinking about what is hurting you. So
Absolutely.
that's why I say ultimately God has the power to enable you to forgive. And that's my whole thing. You have to pray. You have to let go, let God. And like I said, I go back to my let go, let God release. Release that burden, release that heartache, release that pain, fear. Because a lot of that unforgiveness is the fear of letting go.
Yeah. That's good. So we actually have Reverend Jody on the line. And Reverend Jody,
Yeah.
thank you so much for calling in. I would love for you to chime in on this conversation.
Well, hi. And first of all, thank you for having me on. And Wanda is a very good friend of mine and
Yes.
a pure heart. And I think everyone should
Okay.
buy her book. Wanda knows that I am reframing mental health for humanity backed by world leaders in neuroscience. And so I had a lot to say about Alzheimer's. And while it's not my right to tell people whether or not they are supposed to forgive someone for dating while the spouse has Alzheimer's, what I will say, which could give people like a tool to decide where they want to go, is Alzheimer's is, first of all, and I'll just say what I'm going to say is for entertainment purposes only. We like to have
Okay.
that protection. So
All right.
Alzheimer's, and we have the research for that, is caused by toxins, drugs, pharmaceuticals and things like that. Okay. However, Alzheimer's is really not it ends up being a physical disease, but it's brought on as an emotional disease. And spiritual disease, meaning it's spiritual disruption where the physical and spiritual body disconnect, and they can actually measure this now with different tools that my mentor, Dr. Patrick Porter of BrainTap, uses, and he's the one who endorsed the reframe because I actually got this as a divine download, and I got scared and I flew out to go see him, and I'm like, hey, is this how this really works? Right? So when we understand that our husband or if it's or their wife has Alzheimer's and they're not spiritually in their body, the question I'll pose to your listeners is this: are you still married or are you spiritually widowed?
Okay, so you just dropped some information on me that I've never heard before. So I need to back up and get you to expand on that because I'm willing to take a guess that if I've never heard it, there's some other people that possibly have never heard it either. So you talked about the fact that Alzheimer's is not a physical disease. I I don't know a lot about it. I will say that right up front. That's my disclaimer. In fact, I really don't know anything about it. I tend to think of it in the same context as thinking about senility, dementia. They seem to be related, but just things to different degrees. Also, I will say that there has been some research that shows that not that the decrease in estrogen necessarily causes Alzheimer's, but that women who do experience decrease in estrogen during menopause, women have Alzheimer's more than men, or I should say there are more women who suffer from Alzheimer's than men. And there seems to be a correlation. So one is not necessarily shown to cause the other, but as estrogen decreases in some women, it leads to more of the Alzheimer's. So I'm trying to wrap my brain around how all these things fit together if it's not in fact a physical ailment. So tell me a little bit more about what you and your mentor have discovered with respect to the cause of Alzheimer's.
So, okay, so let me back up. It ends up being a physical issue. So it definitely ends up being physical.
Okay.
But it's the origin of the physical manifestation, okay, comes from a multitude of things. So one is the subconscious mind. We have a belief system, some of us, not all of us, that, oh, by the time I reach, I'm going to make one up. Okay. By the time I reach 60, I'm going to have Alzheimer's. That's my disease, right? Or they don't want to face reality. I don't want to see what's really happening. And so because of these belief systems, because our brain is incredibly powerful, we can manifest through our thoughts alone, forgetting the drugs for a minute, just that. And then that emotion drives the physical outcome of Alzheimer's. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's still very fascinating. It's brand new to me, but it does. I follow what you're saying. Definitely follow what you're saying. Okay. And you're saying that
Yeah,
this is all, go ahead.
yeah, it's in, I was disabled for 4 years, and at the onset, someone had told me that the pain I had was all in my head. And while I didn't really agree with them at the time, the truth is everything is in all of our heads. So when we clear the subconscious mind, we clear, fill in the blank, a disease. But it takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of work. And going to what Wanda has written about, because it ties in big time. You see, when we don't forgive others, we can only forgive someone as much as we are willing to forgive ourselves. So if we are
Say that again. I don't want anybody to miss that. Say that again.
we can only forgive someone as much as we are willing to forgive ourselves. So if we can't love ourselves and forgive ourselves for our flaws and our hiccups, any mistake that we've ever made, we can't look across the table and forgive someone for their hiccup, their flaw, their mistake, their lesson.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
That's
That's
so
interesting
true.
stuff. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Wanda. What were you going to say?
Yeah, no, that's so true because it took me a long time to understand, why do I have to forgive myself? I didn't do anything. And exactly what Jody was saying. I mean, we got to forgive ourselves first.
Yes.
That's the main thing. You forgive yourself first, and then you can forgive others, because sometimes we're not the judge of what people do, right?
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to realize that as well, because we're humans. We're only humans as far as the things that we do. But yeah, what Jody was saying, yeah, but in order for us to forgive other people, and let it go, because once we hold on to that for so long, for so many years, which is causing our health issues, that it's time to let go of the past and let go and let God handle them, not for us to handle them, because we can't change them.
Right. So, and
Right.
Jody, if you can hang on with us for a little bit.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
it almost sounds to me like between what the two of you are saying is that there might be somewhat of a formula for forgiveness. Is there a formula? Is there something that you can tell us that, for somebody who doesn't quite know how, especially given that now that we've got this new element introduced to you have to forgive yourself first and it's all in your mind and those kinds of things. Let me go to you first, Wanda, and then I'm going to go to Jody. Is there a formula for success? I mean, for forgiveness?
Well, a specific formula, no, it
Well,
depends on the
like
person.
the steps, the process. What do
Yeah,
people
the
have to go through?
process is basically letting go of those hurts that you have, letting go of things that's been burdening, that you've been holding on to for so long,
Hmm.
releasing it to be able to free yourself and being able to heal. from those unforgiving people that have done you wrong. So once you go through all of those, I believe that that's when God can say, okay, let me take over. Let me take over. And that's where prayer comes in. Okay. So praying about that. And it, like I said, it's not easy to let go of things that has happened to you for so many years. I mean, like I said, being in corporate, dealing with other things in my life, I had to get older to realize that I can't hold on to these burdens anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right. So I want to hear from Jody, and then they tell me a couple of other callers holding on. So Jody, what's your take on that? Is there some kind of formula for forgiveness?
My answer is yes.
Okay.
And there are a couple things. Number one, we all have expectations about how things are supposed to be. And so we have to let go of those expectations and allow a new belief system to be, right? Because if we have an expectation and people don't meet our expectation, that gives us purpose, bad purpose, but purpose to wear that anger, resentment as a badge of honor. And we don't really want to do that because, as I said earlier in the thread, is that it harms our own cell health. I did received a divine download called the All Clear Protocol. And that protocol allows you to clear the subconscious mind imprints in your cells through Jesus and your spiritual guides and the archangels. And all it really is doing is focusing on the surrender. And I will leave this one thought with your listeners, and that a lot of people stay angry and don't forgive because they want to maintain control. And God came to me and he gave me this. The power is not in the control. It's in the surrender, because that's when you get your life back. So
All right.
that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you listening, and thank you for calling in.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Jody.
Interesting new perspective on not only the forgiveness piece, but the Alzheimer's piece. So told that there are another two more calls coming in. Let me see. Who's my next caller?
Okay.
Is there a caller on the line? Okay. Go ahead.
Just real quick. So in my book, I do have a bonus checklist to start the journey to forgiveness.
All right. Tell them the name of the book again.
Name of the book is Forgiveness, Walking in Freedom Through God's Grace. So I do have chapters on a bonus checklist to start your journey to forgiveness. And it's a checklist. It's checklist on how to do that. So
excellent. And so I know it was in the YouTube chat, so people can find it in there, but tell us again how they can go about getting a copy of the book.
You can actually go on to wdpearsonassociates.com/new book, but that is actually in the chat. I think the YouTube
YouTube
channel
chat
here. Yeah, and that way you can get my autograph copy, but it's also on Amazon.
Okay.
Forgiveness, Walking in Freedom to God's Grace. So,
and because some people listen through TuneIn Radio, some listen on our pghdscn.com website, just say it one more time, how they get to your website to get the book, just in case they're not watching on YouTube.
Okay, so it's www.wdpearsonassociates.com/new book. Okay. And that way you can see exactly my Forgiveness, Walking in Freedom to God's Grace that's in there. And it's a jot form. That way you can get an autographed copy, as well as little bonus things that I give you, like a bookmark with that book.
Okay. What kinds of things does the book cover? Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it covers quite a few things here. It may, very, very, it covers the power of forgiveness, a journey for healing. It covers understanding forgiveness, what it is and what it isn't, forgiving yourself, which we were talking about, the first step to freedom. And it's about freedom once you do learn how to forgive. The role of faith and forgiveness. So it's quite a few things. And also my biggest thing, and I do in the mentoring group that affirmations. Affirmations are so important to to get that positive way of going. Like you said, you start with God every day. Affirmation. So it has a chapter on affirmation and a forgiveness devotional bonus. I have a devotion in there and the roadmap to forgiveness checklist. Why forgiveness is so hard. What are the benefits of forgiving someone? And forgiveness, walking in freedom to God's grace is what I talked about here. So it's quite nice. It's just a few chapters that I just talked about here. So it's more things in there.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted you to share so that people get a fuller understanding of all that they get should they order that book. All right, so Kevin B is on the line from Pittsburgh. Hey, Kevin B, thank you so much for calling. What's your comment or question for us?
Yes, I have what's a question and a comment, Dr. Bingham, and it's my second time calling you, and I've always learned something in listening to you. But I wanted to address the question about Michael Irvin.
Please.
We don't know this man is cheating, and it begs the question: can men and women be friends? Couldn't that woman be his friend? I saw a little bit of the tape. If that was someone he was truly interested in, he would have put the woman on the inside. She was walking on the outside of him, closer to traffic. I mean, he showed no real concern or devotion to her. So, I mean, it could be something very casual and nothing at all that he is demeaning his marriage. So, I mean, that's almost like something that happened to me. That would be something that may not be forgivable because we are attacking his character. And and your second principle is betrayal of attack of our identity, and something that we don't truly know. But here we are creating a scenario that this man is cheating on his wife, who is suffering from a debilitating disease. So, but we don't know. So I don't know why we would entertain it.
Thank you thank you for the perspective. So if you recall, what I said was there are rumors going around that he's cheating. I don't know if he is or not. There are rumors that I've heard going around that he might be, and I did see that video clip. Now, I will say that from my opinion, the way she grabs his arm and touches him, they have a closeness. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's cheating, that there's some intimacy going on, but she grabs his arm in a way that is familiar. I will say that. And maybe that's part of where some of the rumors get started. But I think you're right. We don't know. And that's why I wanted to show it, because I wanted to get people's view on, based on what you're seeing, what do you say? Because to my knowledge, I haven't seen anything else out there. There may be others, but that's the only clip I've seen. Yet there are these rumors going back and forth about what he's doing. Do those people have some additional information that I don't have? I don't know, but I wanted to see, let me show this clip. And what do you all think? Do you all think that it might be going on? And then if it is, since we're talking about forgiveness, would that be something that's forgivable? And would listeners be able to forgive something like that? So I appreciate your perspective, because I think you're exactly right. We don't know. And we do know that betrayal sometimes happens in the form of gossip. So if people are online, if people are online gossiping about this man's business and whether or not he is having some sort of affair, then that is a form of betrayal. And the people who are doing the gossiping, and I'm saying the people who, because all I'm doing is presenting stuff to you, the people who are doing the gossiping, they at some point will need some forgiveness. But this to me is it's one of the reasons why we do relationship conversations, because we want to put stuff out there to make people think. What do you think is going on? I mean, I could just talk to you for 2 hours. Trust me, I could about all kinds of things that are going on, but I want to stimulate thoughts and I want to stimulate conversation. So I am so grateful that, first of all, that you, this is not your first time listening, or if the fact that you talked about learning something whenever you listen, that warms my heart. But then also the fact that, you called in and you were like, hey, let's wait a minute now. Let's not destroy the man's character. That's a good thing. So thank you, Kevin.
But can I say one other thing, and then we'll get off. But we're talking about sometimes we confuse excusing forgiveness with excusing behavior. But can't two things be true at the same time? Isn't it the behavior that we are trying to forgive? What the person did, the behavior that they displayed, isn't that what we're also trying to forgive?
Yeah, I love because I know you're listening just by all these things you're raising. So let's back up on that one a little bit. What we're saying is that some people are reluctant to forgive because they feel as if I forgive them, then I'm saying that what they did was okay. And what we're saying is you can forgive and still feel like what they did was not okay. So just because you're forgiving them doesn't mean that you're making a statement about whether or not they were right or wrong. They can be wrong, but at the same time, you can forgive. You don't have to hold on to any anger or bitterness or resentment. So yeah, forgiving doesn't give them a pass. It doesn't, because some people feel like, well, if I forgive, then they'll do it again. I'm making myself a doormat. No, that's not the case. You still want to have boundaries. You can build boundaries, but that doesn't mean that you've got to be all emotionally bent out of shape because of something that they did. But you would put up your boundaries and let them know that was not okay. You cannot treat me in that way, but you can still forgive them and move on. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. And I thank you for your time.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
For sharing.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Take care.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
you too.
Good
You
night.
too. Good night. That is wonderful. I love when people call it, especially when we get an opportunity to have an exchange. That's really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
that was
time for
good.
our last break of the night. Go ahead, make your comment, and then we'll go ahead and go to our break. What were you going to say, Wanda?
No, I agree with you absolutely. So when you acknowledge a wrong was committed and refuse to tolerate it again, while simultaneously releasing the bitterness, then you're tied to defense for your own peace of mind. It's about peace
Yeah.
of mind. It's
It
really what
really
that's
is. And in
what it means.
everything, you have to have boundaries. There have to be boundaries in everything. So, yeah, this is no different. People need to know, it's like, what was the old expression? I think it was Eleanor Roosevelt who said something along the lines about how we teach people how to treat us. We
Yeah.
train them on that because it's true. If you don't have boundaries and you don't respond appropriately, you are allowing people to treat you however, and you are teaching them that that's okay. So we want them to know it's not okay, but that doesn't mean that I have to be angry. It's almost like, it reminds me of raising children. You let your child know that what they did was not okay, but you don't stop loving them. You don't necessarily become angry at them. You forgive the person. You don't necessarily forgive the behavior, but you forgive the person. So think on that for a moment. Give us your thoughts when we return. This is Relationship Conversations with Dr. Linda Bing and my guest, Wanda Pearson, on Pittsburgh's DSEN. We'll be right back.
We are going to be on the Royal Caribbean cruise line and their new ship, Icon of the Seas, November 7th through the 14th, 2026.
We got excellent dates because the dates that we got are not within their blackout date, which means that whatever current promotion is happening right now with Royal Caribbean, when you pay your deposit, that promotion will be applied. If it's 60% off the second person, there's one that's a drink credit because they run different promotions all the time. This is a large corporation, and we have all balcony rooms and we have ocean view rooms that are reserved just for DSEN listeners. Icon of the Seas, it has elevated adult-focused party and chill areas. It has an infinity pool where you sit in this infinity pool and you see views of the ocean. They have a day vibe where there's a DJ. They are a little bit of party without the chaos. So you're not going to get the hoopla party chaos, but you're still going to be entertained. They have the Aquadome. Those of us who are Pittsburgh born and raised, we remember when the Civic Arena used to open up the dome. Remember that?
Absolutely.
How amazing that! I saw
Yes.
Prince and they
Wow.
opened the dome. Well, they have something called an Aquadome on Icon of the Seas, and basically you sit in this theater type zone and they're doing acrobatics and night activities. You get views of the ocean and the sky and the stars and the moon, and it is just wonderful. They have water park at sea that has 6 water slides to it.
It's
And of
like
course,
a floating city.
it is. It really is.
You're talking about a dome that opens.
Which is why they don't say decks. Instead, that what they have are different neighborhoods. Because it's a rolling on the sea city. And we're going to stop at St. Martin in Phillipsburg. We're going to stop at St. Thomas. Those will be full days where we're there. So you can do excursions if you'd like to do excursions. And of course, there's the perfect day at Coco Cay, which is Royal Caribbean's private Island. And we're going to have a special reserved section for DSEN listeners. It's going to be a wonderful time. While we're on the cruise, we're going to do some trivia. Of course, we'll have a welcome cocktail as well as a farewell dinner. It is not just limited to the radio listeners. Bring everybody. The deposit is $250 per person.
You can go to Pittsburgh's DSEN's website to find out all the good information about the cruise, Icon of the Seas. I even love the name.
No, I love it. I'm a cruise fanatic. I'm ready to go home and start packing. So I'll see you ladies later.
I want a heart that forgives, a heart full of love, one with compassion just like yours above, one that overcomes evil with goodness and love, like it never happened.
A beautiful song, beautiful song. I love that. Thank you so much, Hezriel, for playing that one for us.
Yeah.
So welcome back to Relationship Conversations with Dr. Linda Bing on Pittsburgh's DSEN. We have been having a great conversation all about forgiveness, looking at it from all different kinds of perspectives, even talking about whether or not a certain NFL or former NFL player has been living up to the rumors that people say with respect to him cheating and whether or not that's been okay. So I love the interaction. Thank you so much. I understand that. Oh, before I go to the call, I just want to point out, of course, at the end, I will advise you, as I always do, remind you of some of the upcoming shows. But that commercial, I just love that commercial. And I just wanted to shout out to our Travel Fun and Tip show, which does air the fourth Saturday of every month. The next one will be July 25th. And yeah, they give you all kinds of great information. But that was the team from that show talking about that particular cruise that DSEN will be taking along with listeners. So we'll remind you about it, give you the details at the end. But please remember to tune in on July 25th. 10 till noon and listen to Travel Fun and Tips. So I understand Rita is on the line. Rita from Pittsburgh, are you still there?
I sure am, Dr. Bing. It's such another good show. So thank you
Thank you
so
so
much.
much. Thank you. Rita's one of my
I,
faithfuls. I love it.
I'm piggybacking on what some of the other folks have been saying. This Irving case with being married. Again, I'm old school, and I'm just not. It doesn't sit right with me. You're married, your spouse develops Alzheimer's, and you decide to date while still married. It takes me back to the restaurateur model B. Smith, who I had the pleasure of meeting and talking with several years back before her death. But her husband, Dan, decided he wanted to date. And not only did he decide he wanted to date, he brought this young woman into her home.
Wow.
So the young woman was living in the house with them. And for me, it's a certain level of respect that is just broken. I don't know if Michael Irvin, like your previous caller said, was having an affair outside of his marriage or not. That's something that he has to come to terms with. And I can forgive, but I won't forget.
Yeah. And, I think that's true of many people, and it's not a requirement. We don't have to forget, but we are called
Right.
upon to forgive.
To forgive.
And so, yeah, it
Absolutely.
is a matter of respect. I agree. I also would say this, and now I'm not remembering exactly how it's worded or where it's from. I should have had knowing who my guest was tonight, I should have had my Bible right here with me because I knew we were going to scripture. But the Bible does talk about us not giving the appearance of doing wrong as well. So even if he's not having an affair, he does need to be mindful of how of the optics. How do things look when you're out and about? Because even thinking about it, I have some close male friends that I've known throughout the majority of my life. One of my closest male friends I've known since I was 11 years old. Okay. And so it might not be uncommon if I were out with him, I might grab his arm in some certain situations. But you got to be careful of what it looks like. If I'm crossing the
Absolutely.
street or if he's walking too far ahead of me and I need to catch up, or there might be some circumstances where you could see something like that happening. But again, we just have to be mindful of the appearance. And again, we don't know if there's any cheating going on. We just know what people are talking about. And why should we not get in on the conversation? So thank you, Rita. I appreciate you chiming in.
Can I just ask one question also?
Sure.
I don't know that much about Alzheimer's, but someone who is living with it, do they have moments where they can remember or things in their mind are a little bit clearer? Because I'm wondering if, for example, B. Smith, if she had moments where she knew this woman who was not her daughter was living in her home,
Yeah.
and her husband.
And I wonder about that with Michael Irvin's wife as well. So I am no Alzheimer's expert either, but from what I know, and by the grace of God, no one in my family, to my knowledge, has had Alzheimer's. But from what I hear, the bits and pieces, or friends who have parents who are experiencing that, is they go in and out of memory. So there may be times when they will recognize a loved one. There may be other times when they don't recognize that person. They're afraid of them. My former mother-in-law, she was not diagnosed with Alzheimer's. So I don't know if it was truly Alzheimer's. Maybe it was just dementia or senility, because as I said, they're three distinct things, but I don't know all the particulars about what separates them. But I mention her because I remember when one of her sons died, and we told her about his death, she broke down. And then, as you would expect, but then a couple of days would go by and she would ask for him again. And every time she asked and someone had to tell her, she broke down like it was the first time she was ever hearing about it. So she would go in and out of being lucid. There were times when she knew who everybody was around her. And then, like I said, there are other times when she completely forgot what was going on and why all the family was here. And, where is, she mentioned that son's name. So I do believe that in some cases, and it's different for different people, but I believe in some cases, yes, she might come and recognize, that that's not her daughter living in that house, and know exactly what's going on. And then there could be other times when she was totally oblivious to it, didn't even know who she was, perhaps. So yeah,
Right.
it's one of those things you just don't really know. Wanda, you want to comment on that in any way while we've got Rita on the line?
Yeah, because my father had dementia. He would come in and well, I mean, he knew who I was, but at the same time, I have an aunt, his sister, that actually sometimes she comes in and out of knowing who. But I'm gonna tell you one thing about dementia and Alzheimer. You put some music on for them, they remember every single word, especially like my father, Temptations, he'll
Wow.
know every single word that they're singing. So,
Wow.
so music for them is just like a spirit of the soul, that they will never forget those words in a song.
Yes.
So, yeah, but yeah, they do come in and out, but at the same time, they realize, but with the situation with Michael Irvin, I mean, I don't know. They could, I mean, B. Smith, that definitely took a lot of courage to bring
Yeah.
somebody else
Yeah.
down. I didn't
And
know that
if
about it.
we could take the celebrity out of it, we can take out B. Smith, we can take out
Yeah,
Michael Irvin, and just look at that situation of, if this is
yeah,
going on, would it be okay? Would it be something that you can forgive? Because, again, we don't know. All we know is what we hear about those individuals, but the
right.
situation certainly is one that we could comment on. So I want to share
Yeah.
some, thank you, Rita. I appreciate you so
Thank you
much
Thank
so
for
you,
much.
listening
Rita.
and calling in.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you. All right, so I've got a few more comments that are coming through in the chat on YouTube. We've got one. Thank you, Wanda and Dr. Linda, for allowing me to share, certainly. And then Wanda will have a forgiveness retreat soon, too. Yes, and she is going to tell us about her forgiveness retreat. Someone is mentioning that maybe they were commenting to something we said earlier. Maybe they're afraid if they forgive, they will be hurt again, used as a way to got cut off, can't see all of it. But we did talk about that a little bit too, how it's a self-protection thing. So thank you. Someone is thanking Reverend Jody. So thank you, Reverend Jody, for being
Yes,
on.
thank you.
And Yeah, we're teaching them. Someone commented on that, how we talked about we're teaching people how to treat us if we don't put up boundaries. Another person, really great show. So happy to see you, Wanda, on this great podcast. Thank you. Though we don't call this a podcast here at DSCN, we call it a radio show, but I get it.
Thank
And
you.
then someone else saying, yes, in and out, spiritual disruption. And not sure what that, oh, the morphogenic field is broken. Okay. Somebody will have to come on sometime and explain what the morphogenic field just happens to be. So remember, it's also in on the YouTube chat. So Rita, we know, is listening through the radio stream. Don't forget that is another way you can find us on TuneIn. You can find us on the PGS DSCN, PGH, excuse me, DSCN.com. Number of different ways to listen to us. But if you're able to check out the chat in on YouTube, there is the link right there for ordering Wanda's book. And as she mentioned, you can go to wdpearsonassociates.com and order the book there. So Kevin is on the line. We've got a different Kevin this time. Kevin, what's your question?
Yes, hello, Dr. Bing and Wanda. Can both of you hear me okay?
Yes, we
Yes,
can. Thank
sir.
you.
Excellent conversation. I have, I guess, a comment and a question as well regarding Michael Irvin. As it was said, we do not know who the woman was or who the woman is. So
Right.
we don't know what the relationship is, if it were a friend, if it were a cousin. we just don't know.
Right.
However, let's my question is around situations where the relationship is known, okay, from a cheating standpoint and from a relationship standpoint. When there's a relationship such as that, where is the accountability from a woman standpoint? We always hear about, bashing the man when the man is out there cheating. However, he can't cheat by himself. So
Absolutely.
what do you all say, from an accountability standpoint, being that woman who's in that particular position?
Great question. So I'm an equal opportunity basher. Whoever the married person is, they are the ones that took the vows. They are the ones that made the promise. They are the ones who are responsible for fidelity in that relationship. Now, that doesn't absolve the other person. In this case, it's a woman. Sometimes it's a man. It doesn't absolve the other person, but that person, not excusing their behavior, that person did not make a commitment to the spouse who's being betrayed. So I do think that there's accountability on both parts, but I put more accountability on the person who is breaking the marital vows than I do on the other individual. And maybe I'm splitting hairs because, and again, coming at it from a Christian perspective, it's all sin. There's no big sin, no little sin. However, when we're looking at it from a moral standpoint, just looking at it as the world would look at it, then I would say that, yeah, the person who is doing the cheating, the person who is involved in the marriage, whether it's a male or a female that's doing the cheating, they made some commitments that they are not honoring. And oftentimes, on a similar note, many times I've seen in not only depicted in media, but in counseling situations, etc. If a wife finds out that her husband is cheating, she goes after the woman. And it's like, why? That woman made no promises to you. That man is the one who made promises to you. So he needs to be the focus of the corrective behavior. But I agree with you. It does seem as if we let the other person get off free. And no, they have some accountability as well. What's your thought, Wanda?
Yeah, that is so true. And the woman has accountability too, because she knows she's cheating with the married man.
Yep,
So she
absolutely.
knows, as far as the moral is in the Bible too, um, that is something that what would happen if that was you, if that was your husband doing that to you. So it's really about treat people the way you want to be treated, and a lot of, I mean, and especially he was a football player, right? And we know a lot of women go after athletes.
Yeah, yeah.
As far as
They're gonna throw
break.
themselves. It's probably hard to be in a position like that because there's always
Yeah.
somebody trying to throw themselves at you and get your attention. And like we said, we do want to remind everybody that we're not saying that Michael Irvin was cheating. We're just saying that it's been rumored, and we wanted to get other people's opinions on it. We have some more.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank
Kevin.
you. Thank you, Kevin.
Some more have come through. I totally agree with the person calling in. It takes two, yes, and they could both be married. That's another good point too. We don't know who she was or what her situation is. And as someone pointed out, might have been Kevin, it was one of the Kevins who said something about could be a cousin or whatever. There are lots of reasons why there could be familiarity between a male and a female. And that's why before saying anything, I wanted to show the video so that people would come to their own conclusion as to what could possibly be going on. But we are coming to the end of our time. So before we go, I want to make sure that we like to make sure that if we open things up, we close it back down before we release you. So I want to make sure we talk a little bit about self-forgiveness. And it's interesting that Reverend Jody mentioned forgiving yourself, because that is something that is so important. It's often difficult, but it's essential. And I'm not speaking about it from the standpoint of having to forgive yourself in order to be able to forgive someone else. Just talking about the process of letting go, whatever shame or self-condemnation you might feel based on past actions. Like if you made some poor choices in the past, we're not saying that you need to erase the past or try to erase the past, but you need to try to release, as Wanda's been saying all night, let go, let God release yourself from whatever shame or condemnation. So here are just a few things before I let Wanda have the final say on tonight's topic, but a few things pertaining to navigating self-forgiveness for any major mistakes you may have made. One is to understand the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is that uncomfortable but healthy realization that you made a poor choice and it motivates you to do better. So guilt is uncomfortable but healthy. Shame, on the other hand, is the destructive belief that you are inherently broken or a bad person. And that's why we talk about them separately, guilt and shame. You can feel uncomfortable about a bad choice and also at the same time feel like you made that bad choice because you are inherently broken. We don't want people to feel shame. Ideally, you will release the guilt as well, but definitely avoid the shame. Another thing is to acknowledge and validate. Do not bury your mistakes, but honestly acknowledge what occurred and validate the heavy emotions that come along with it. Understand what you're feeling, understand what the other person might be feeling, whether they are the betrayed or the betrayer. You still need to put yourself in their shoes and try to understand. And there is something called 12 Steps to Self-Forgiveness. I came across the guide. If you're interested, you can send an email to me and I'll be happy to email it to you. You can email me, Dr. Linda at turningpointlg.com. Again, that's my business, Turning Point, L as in leadership, G as in group, Dr. Linda, and it's just Dr. Linda at turningpointlg.com. Another thing to do when you're navigating through this is to make amends, address the fact, acknowledge it and make amends. So take responsibility for your part in whatever took place. And that would go to a lot to what our second Kevin was saying with respect to that. There's in a situation where there might be some infidelity, there is guilt on both sides. And so regardless of whether you were the person in the committed marriage or you were the person cheating with them, acknowledge your part in it, and you need to take amends for it, because I just always feel like why would a woman want to put another woman through the hurt that would go along with something like that? Much like you've been saying all night, Wanda, do treat other people the way you want to be treated. We have to rethink this whole thing about ruminating, let it go. According to mental health experts, self-forgiveness is a commitment. It's not just a feeling. unproductive ruminating, the habit of continuously dwelling on past mistakes or distressing over emotions in sort of a mental loop over and over and over again, when you do that, it's unproductive and it keeps you anchored in the past. You have to redirect your focus to present actions and maybe look to what you'll do in the future to improve and break the cycle. And then the last thing would be to practice self-compassion. Give yourself some grace, basically. The same way you would extend empathy and grace to someone else, you need to do that to yourself. You forgive people who hurt you, so now forgive yourself as well. So I don't understand why sometimes it is more difficult to forgive ourselves than to forgive others. But Wanda, I'm going to ask you, so in the few minutes we've got 5 minutes, really 4, because I got to do my reminders at the end. But I want you to do a couple of things. I want you to, if someone came to you for coaching and they were having a hard time forgiving themselves, just very quickly, what are some things you would say to them? And then remind us about how to get your book and tell us about your upcoming retreat.
Okay. I would actually find out the core of what it is that they need to forgive. Like, what is it that has hurt you so bad to hold on to the past? We got to, first of all, learn how to release the past, okay? And to see how we can move forward. And moving forward means that let's write down what you need to be able to help you forgive, to move on to the release, to have your freedom and peace of mind. So it's really about how seeing what a person is. We got to see what a person is, first of all. It could be a little bit more deeper. And that's why I want to get them into the space where let's focus on what we need to help you with. Okay. And it could be a broken, I did a podcast, a broken up marriage. It could be about the hurt or the abuse. I did a podcast on abuse. So it's about whatever situation that they're going through. How can we get through that? What do we need to do to help you to get past that and to be able to, and we're going to pray first. Okay. Praying actually help us clear out anything that's that the devil is holding on to you. Because a lot of time the devil is holding on to that, your thought, your mindset. So where is your mindset? Where is it that you need to let go? And like I said, let go, let God release. Release that fear, release that pain, release that frustration, all of that's in your mind, that actually to let it go and let God take you to the next step. So I'm there for you to be able to get to that step, to be able to get that freedom and that peace that you need to move forward.
That's great. All right. Remind us where to get your book and then tell us about your retreat.
Yeah, you can get my book at wdpearsonassociates.com/new book or WD Pearson Associates. You see a little line, you see all of my books. I have quite a few books. My retreat is actually, I just confirmed it. It's September 26th. It's a forgiveness retreat workshop that we're going to be doing, which is great. It's actually in Douglasville, Georgia. And I just talked to the owner. I am so excited about doing it. It's going to be so many things that we're going to do to be able to heal, peace, tranquility. It's on 10 acres of land. So I'm excited about this retreat that I've been wanting to, and this is what God had, when I wrote this book, this is one of the things he wanted me to do a forgiveness retreat, forgiveness workshop. And I'm excited. But so that's September 26th at 10 a.m. And it's going to include like breakfast and lunch, and also activities that we're going to be doing as well. So,
okay.
What I want,
and so is it open for men and for women, or who's the target? Okay.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Men need
yeah, absolutely.
That too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, my husband's gonna be there. So yeah, it's open to men.
All right.
Men and
very
women.
good.
No, definitely, yeah.
And is the information, so if someone wants more information, it'll be on your website?
It'll be, yeah, I'm gonna have my web design, put it on my website as well. So yeah, It's gonna be on there. So I do have a closing thought.
Please.
Forgiveness doesn't change the past, but through God's grace, it can transform your future. My prayer is that every person listening will understand that forgiveness is not weakness. It is freedom, it's healing, peace, and purpose. And that's what my retreat is all about. Forgiveness, freedom, healing, and peace and purpose. All of those actually come into being able to transformation. It's about
Yeah.
transformation.
Yeah.
So that's what my whole retreat is about: transforming your life, and as well as coaching as well, transforming your life to be able to live with peace and freedom, to be able to get to the next step, to not have to worry about what, like we were talking about, Linda, not worry about what other people are saying about you, right?
Right. Now, that's a beautiful thing. And, you know, one of the things that I wish we had a time to get into was just looking at that whole thing about forgiveness not being a weakness, but being a strength. So thank you so much. I think people got
Thank
so
you.
much out of this conversation. I hope you get people to sign up for the retreat and buy the book and all of those great and wonderful things. But you added a lot, and I greatly appreciate you being here to have this conversation with me tonight. I
Thank
think
you.
maybe, yes, maybe the question isn't so much, is there anything I could never forgive? Maybe it really is, what is unforgiveness costing me? Hopefully, we help those of you who are
Yes.
listening see that there's a cost associated with it. And so you're forgiving not for them, but for you. Forgiveness
Oh.
doesn't mean pretending the pain didn't happen. It doesn't mean abandoning wisdom, justice, or healthy boundaries. It means refusing to let yesterday continue controlling today. And you heard that in Wanda's closing comment, as well as her comments about let go, let God, and release. You know, that's really what it's all about. So whether you're wrestling with betrayal or disappointment or your own regrets, forgiveness is less about releasing someone else from their responsibility and more about releasing yourself from the prison of bitterness. So as Wanda reminded us, yes, freedom comes through God's grace, not because the offense wasn't real, but because healing is possible. If forgiveness is the key to freedom, who or what is still holding the key to yours?
Absolutely. And I have a chapter in my book about the weight of unforgiveness.
Wow. Yeah, got to check out that book. All right, so it is time for me to get up out of this seat. But first, let me tell you to check out Soul Take, Pittsburgh's exciting sports talk show. It happens every Tuesday from 6 to 8 p.m. The topics will be, do you still believe in the Pirates pitcher? Do you still believe in the Pirates pitcher Paul Skeens? And how the Steelers linebackers rank heading into training camp in 3 weeks. Latest on the Penguins trades and free agency, big matches at Wimbledon, such as Jessica versus Coco and Naomi versus Carolina and others. So also NBA free agency. Where will LeBron James decide to go? That's a big question that's out there as well. Now, for those of you that like to travel, take a cruise in the Eastern Caribbean with Pittsburgh DSCN. Cruise is taking place November 7th through the 14th. So go to our website for more details. That is pghdscn.com. You can go there, pay your deposit. Everything you need to know is right there on the website. And last but not least, tune into our radio stream at pghdscn.com for the best of soulful music that will be on right after my show, and it's on until midnight. And remember, the best way to stay up to date with Pittsburgh's DSCN is to subscribe. Go to the website, subscribe. If you're not a subscriber on our YouTube channel, subscribe. It's free, and we'll keep you updated on all of our 24/7 programming, whether that is the soulful music, Pittsburgh sports talk, and lifestyle programming such as relationship conversations and travel fun and tips. And it's all happening right here on Pittsburgh's DSCN, the place for soul. So now as I leave you for yet one more time, prayerfully we'll be back together again next Monday. But in the meantime, keep growing, keep learning, keep loving. One love. Good night, y'all.
Good night. Thank you.
You've been listening to Relationship Conversations with Dr. Linda Bing. Continue to listen to Pittsburgh's DSEN. We're on 24/7. See our radio schedule for programming details, and please remember to subscribe to receive updated information.